Hello, focus friends. If I said that something is threatening our relationships, our mental health, our self-awareness, our ability to apply attention to any and all the tasks that we undertake, would you want to know what that thing is? We're hearing the word dopamine all the time at the moment. Today, I want to take a look at why that is. Why, far from being overhyped, it's a critical concept that we do well to understand. And as we shall see, understanding dopamine is important because it can help us to face down what is probably the greatest current threat to our mental health, our relationships, and the very progress that we make in life. But first, for those who haven't come across the word, what is it? Well, it's a neurotransmitter, a chemical messenger that the neurons in our brains use to communicate with each other. It plays a crucial role in the brain's reward system, and it influences much of what we do. But most importantly, it influences what we feel motivated to do. As well as motivation, dopamine affects mood and pleasure. It drives behaviours related to learning and memory and motor system function. It contributes to feelings of joy and exhilaration, the very things that reinforce and motivate us to get up and do stuff. So it's unsurprising that dysregulation of dopamine levels can contribute to neurological and psychiatric disorders such as Parkinson's, schizophrenia, and most importantly, what we'll talk about today, addictions. The next thing to say about it is that the dopamine loop is our motivation loop. The thing to understand with it is that there are inevitable cycles. We go from dopamine highs to lows and back to highs again. To some, this may seem dispiriting. Why can't we just keep the highs and get rid of the lows? But of course, there's a natural balance involved, and we can't cheat nature. But it's important to understand we can learn to power the natural cycle from low to high. We can ensure that it happens more reliably and more purposefully, such that we avoid getting caught in the doldrums. With the right understanding and techniques, we can more reliably propel ourselves forwards. I like to think of this as akin to how, when we snake left and right on a skateboard, we can generate that forward momentum. But perhaps that metaphor doesn't work so well if you've never tried skateboarding. So instead, the visual metaphor I'm showing on the screen now provides a good alternative. Notice how the bearing that's swooping over the moguls gains more go-forward momentum than the one that's going down the flat slope. In my other videos, I've discussed a technique for getting out of the doldrums, how we can deliberately find something more challenging to do than the things that we're procrastinating over. The swing down, doing something hard that we're disinclined to do, can cause us to swing up harder, and we gain in momentum. On a daily basis, we're seeking to tap into these cycles and build momentum to meet our objectives. And to do that, we focus on goals that are aligned with our direction of travel. Then our efforts become like the strokes of an oarsman, each stroke contributing and increasing on the momentum obtained by the previous stroke. But here is where for many of us a problem arises. Sometimes, indeed for some of us much of the time, we're attracted to dopamine highs that are not of our own production. We learn there are shortcuts to obtaining dopamine highs, things other than hitting the goals and métier that we've defined for ourselves. These other things offer the lure of the quick and easy fix, and we know them well. I'm of course talking about the addictive vices, alcohol, gambling, drugs, and pornography. And the hits that these things provide are tangential to our life goals, and so they pull us in the wrong direction. And in doing that, they undermine and can even destroy any of the forwards momentum that we've managed to establish. So now that we've got this mental model, this understanding of the dopamine loop and the importance of having aligned objectives, we can examine afresh one of the most overlooked vices. Today, for many of us, the most insidious addiction comes from the electronic devices that are never far from our hands. Our phones are ever present, ever interrupting, ever available, and make no mistake, browsing social media serves up a brief but distinct dopamine hit. And it's precisely because it's so small, so innocuous seeming, but so available that it's proving to be so devastating. Electronic distractions are destroying momentum in life. The regularity and frequency with which we're knocked off course can be shocking, and the problem is widespread. The extent to which it's afflicting society as a whole is truly frightening. We might not want to face up to it, but it really has become one of the most important issues of our time. If anything, my on-screen graphics are underrepresenting the degree of distraction and loss of go-forwardness that electronic devices and social media are causing. Do you remember when ADHD used to be considered a condition that afflicts only children? Well, not anymore. According to neurologist Professor Andrew Huberman, it's now an affliction that he sees in adults. And this is surely because through our devices and due to in large part to social media, We're training ourselves in distraction. But listen, I have an admission I need to fully acknowledge. I've been as affected by this as much as the next man, if not more. You see, I'm a technologist and I grew up with electronic devices. I use them for a living. Were I a farmer or working in the fields, I'm sure I would be distracted by Twitter far less than I ended up being. But I reached a point where I had to ask myself, must I keep making excuses? My tendency to snatch 5 minutes to check some feeds multiplied and became a bigger problem than I was prepared to admit. I believe now there are more people than not who got to the position I was in who need to look this problem squarely in the face. So when I put these words on the screen, does the very act of reading them give you an urge to cling onto your phone? Do you have any fear that you're witnessing a logic that implies you should put it away more than you want to, or perhaps even feel that you can? Because if so, right there's a problem.